Welcome to MSP 1337. I'm your host, Chris Johnson, a show dedicated to cybersecurity challenges, solutions, a journey together, not alone. Welcome, everybody, to another episode of MSP 1337. I'm your host, Chris Johnson, and today I'm joined by the infamous Jim Harriman of Kinetic Technology Group. Welcome, Jim.
Good to be here.
We have coming up today, we have coming up a social media conversation for an MSP Ignite Town Hall. It was brought up by one of the members, like, hey, we should talk about the dangers of social media, social engineering, what should be considered acceptable for employees, best practices and some of those things. And the more I thought about it, I thought, man, we should do a precursor or even expand upon what could happen in that conversation with what are we seeing in the industry today that might give us pause in how we approach everything from your communications, whether it be email or chat messaging, those types of platforms, and then into more deeper into like social media, like where you get like a request, friend request, those kind of things. And as we were talking about before the show, and I'll throw this one out there as an example, my wife and I had a conversation last night about an email that she had received from someone that she knows. And to put perspective on this, the email came from what it appeared to be the librarian for her middle school. And in the request was sort of context around a book she had asked about. So there wasn't really a lot of reasons to be suspecting that the email's bad because it checked boxes for her in her head, right? But then she told me what happened when she clicked on the link and how it took her to this like weird weight loss link, and it just was weird. So I guess in this case, she got lucky that it wasn't worse than that, and it wasn't done on probably more a Windows machine where it might have really been a problem. But we walked through the questions, and I said, hey, would this person that emailed you, do they know your Yahoo email address? And she goes, well, I guess they could. I said, but why would you? That doesn't make sense. This was work related. It wouldn't make sense that this person would have emailed you to your Yahoo account. So that should be like, we were saying like, that's the easy flag, the easy, like now my hair is going up a little bit, what left of it I have. And then the second one was, did you look at the actual email address? And this is where I knew I was failing in at least one department. And that is how to look at an email header to see what the actual email address is underneath the alias of it said the person's name. And when she saw that, she immediately agreed, like, this is why I got this email. And so then we talked through some of the other issues with it, but we have a society that largely still trusts email communication, especially when it looks like it's coming from someone they trust. And then worse, they don't see any reason to put some effort into validating or verifying that it truly is the person who sent it. And that got me thinking, and I don't know that you're seeing this or not, Jim, but are we educating end users on how to be vigilant? And I don't mean sending them the phishing campaigns, because I feel like phishing campaigns are like, oh, they're sending us another one. And now they have this heightened awareness about that email, not about email in general. And I think in today's day and age, now that we have ChatGPT and some of these other things, I don't think you're going to just have this, like, I see the email and under limited scrutiny, think that it's an attempt at stealing something from you. I mean,
there are just so many things and so many layers to peel back when it comes to all the social engineering tactics and what we're susceptible to. And the fact is that we're all susceptible. I'm susceptible.
Right.
Chris Johnson is as brilliant as you are, susceptible,
thanks.
right?
And we're all going to click on something. It's inevitable.
We are. I had a experience in the last year where we were booking a conference room at a facility We were waiting for a payment link. Apparently, the person that was sending that out, their email got compromised, and I got a link from him, and I clicked it because I was waiting on something.
Right.
And the person that compromised his address obviously got in there and did what he did. Once it took me to where it started asking me for a username and password, I stopped and I called the guy and I said, I think your email's been hacked and you're probably going to start getting a bunch of calls and you need to call your IT department. Right. But
Right.
yeah, it all happens. It can happen so fast and we're not always thinking about it. And I do think that the way that we interact with technology today has become such a just an extension of our appendages, I mean, an extension of our eyes, our hands, and everything that we're doing, to where it's, almost second nature as we're working. And so there is a level of trust that we all tend to carry with us, but at the same time, we have to be vigilant in, just pausing when something doesn't quite look right.
Well, and I think
So
timing is everything. And I've gotten to the point where I spend way too much time on Amazon for my health reasons and financial reasons. I should probably spend less time on Amazon. But one of the things that is I don't want to say annoying, but it's kind of frustrating sometimes, is you get this has shipped. It's like you order a dozen things and they don't all come from the same place. You may get the whole like the XYZ order number has shipped, and you get a few of those, and you can click on the button to have it also notify you and track it and do all that. It's not very often, but on occasion, I'll get a text message or an email that is obviously not Amazon to me, because I'm so used to getting those. But if they figure out an Amazon purchase pattern, maybe they even just saw the number of times the Amazon vehicle goes down my driveway. So they obviously know who I am. No, they're able to, get into your psyche, right? Because they know you want to participate in the expectation, right? If it's supposed to arrive on Monday, you're looking for it's going to arrive on Monday. So if you get something that is similar, you might click on it. That's why I think Christmas time is obviously a great time for these campaigns to be very effective, is like, please click on this link to reroute your FedEx. We were unable to deliver your package. It's like, oh crap. And then you're like, wait, I didn't order anything. Do you think that our opportunity here is about changing the habit in how we communicate? Like, I was thinking about email and those types of messaging, like whether, I'm not advocating one direction or another, but like to make a conscious effort to say, hey, for Amazon, I only get emails, because it's a good way for me to go, well, if I get a text message, I don't have text message communication from Amazon turned on. I've consciously made that change. So that you get yourself to a point where you're working, it's kind of like password changes, right? Like if we allow our passwords to never get changed, if we don't ever change our passwords, we put ourselves in a position of, I didn't even realize I had that account because it's been so long. Maybe you haven't logged in a while. I don't know. What are your thoughts on that?
I mean, there are so many different ways to combat the threats that we see, and I do think taking an approach to using Amazon as the example,
Sure.
like you said, this is how I get notifications from Amazon. Any other way, then it should be suspect, right? And we shouldn't worry about it. And whether we try and do that across the board with every service that we interact with, that's it could be a big undertaking depending on
Right.
how social you are, right? And I think that it does get down to, I mean, there's even a whole practice of cyber psychology, in the psychology world, about analyzing humans and their interactivity with technology and social media and all the other things that go along with that. And I think that, you know, to put it into context of, you know, our industry and, you know, maybe the people that we hire and so on and so forth, I do think that it starts to make sense to even evaluate some of that on people that are working for your business and how
Right.
they interact with technology and social media and that type of stuff to begin with. I mean, we've for over a decade, you know, prior to hiring, we'll look at our prospective hires social media platforms. You know, we'll
Right.
go their LinkedIn, we'll go their Facebook, we'll do things like that just to kind of see, look, is this person like, you know, all out there? Everything that they do
Yeah.
is
What's their
out there. I'm like,
behavior?
okay,
What, yeah.
exactly. You know,
And how would that impact your business, right? Like I think this is where we're going to be going in the town hall, is a conversation around, and we talked about this a little bit on our advisory call. You can't dictate, at least not well, to employees or even what happens, essentially anything that's happening outside of work, as long as it doesn't involve communication dialogue about work, right? um but you can set some guidelines and boundaries that say, look, on social media, if you're posting things like the party that you were at and how you did the 5 keg stands, you may not think that that's a reflection on you at work, but it absolutely is, right? Like, and in fact, we don't hire people when you see behavior that's, say, unprofessional to a degree that they're sharing it with the world. And again, this is a gray area, because I think you have, I was like, oh, I discovered through the 18 Facebook posts I found, photos, that this person obviously is a chain smoker, and we have a no smoking tolerance in our company, but they're going to work from home, right? They're never going to be in my office. Like, how is that a good slant to take on, you know, the HR side of things? Like, there's so many sides of this, but I think what we're really getting at in our idea here, or the goals with how we handle social media, is like, how do you act in a way that's safe? And to your point of, like, what is available to friends, as in like close friends, versus the 800,000, 5,000 followers you might have that just ask to be your friend on Facebook? Do you give them the same view into your personal life that you do, you know, your spouse or your kids? I mean, we don't do a good job, though, educating even our employees on, like, hey, did you know that there's a setting in Facebook that you can toggle that does XYZ? Did you know there's 2FA authentication for your social media platforms? I mean, those aren't work specific, right? So, like, how do you have the conversation that says, hey, we use 2FA on everything, but I'm not going to check in with you about your US Bank or Wells Fargo to make sure that you're doing it there too? Because God forbid, that's the path of compromise that walks itself all the way back into your company, because they did it on a company computer.
Sure. Right. Yeah, there's, man, it's like this conversation you could probably do 4 or 5 different episodes on this alone.
We might have to.
You know, you might. You know, I look at it like this. Like I said, we would kind of check out, you know, their social media pages if they exist. And to me, there is many red flags for not having any of it as there are for having too much, right?
Sure.
I mean, there's always that fine balance that you look for when you're hiring people. But man, I really do think that in order to successfully have or integrate this type of conversation into you know, whether we call it, you know, security awareness or whatever it is within our staff, is that we really have to kind of understand the people that work for us and what they're, you know, does somebody have a fear of missing out kind of complex or
Yeah.
you know, something like that might actually, you know, maybe we need to spend more time with that person, because, you know, any opportunity they have to engage with something or somebody, or what appears to be somebody in, you know, via email or social media, they're going to do it because
Yeah.
they don't want to miss out on anything.
Right.
They don't want to miss an opportunity. They don't want to miss a deal. They don't want to whatever, you know.
Yeah.
So I do think that we have to really kind of work to understand, you know, where each of our staff members are. And I mean, as our staff gets larger, it becomes more complicated. And so then it starts to roll down. But, you know, our company is 14 people. And so
Right.
it's pretty easy to know 14 people. But, you know, you multiply that by 10, and all of a sudden, then you have to depend on everybody else to make sure that the information is disseminated and all of that. So yeah, there's just
I don't know
so
that
much to unpack there.
I don't disagree with your logic behind the multiplier, but knowing 14 people at work is not the same as knowing 14 people outside of work. So like I think about like, so let's just say I'm a Bears fan. I'm not really a Bears fan, but like using that as an example, I'm a Bengals fan. If you know that I'm a Bengals fan, great. But what if I'm also a Rams fan and you didn't know that? Like there's so many things that could spiral very quickly with personal life, whether it's family or politics or, you know, you name it, right? Like maybe I'm a food whatever judge, or even things like not necessarily moonlighting per se, but maybe I have a hobby that pays for my wife's car or whatever it might be. Like I guess it's sort of a hobby, right? Like maybe I do stuff on Etsy or Pinterest and I get paid for some of that stuff. Do you need to be aware of those things? And I don't mean that to be like we should know everything that our employees are doing, but I think by and large, because of how social media works and the platforms that we have for communication, you not knowing about that, you're in the dark on what the world around you knows about your employee that you are in the dark on, and that's not good. So that kind of raises the question, like as you move into social media platforms, how do you help your employees navigate what is appropriate use of social media, and maybe why you say our policy is that between 8 and 3 or 8 and whatever, unless it's part of your job responsibility, we would prefer and we're going to tell you not to be on social media. Not because we don't want you to use social media, but because that creates yet another window of availability for you, the employee, to be hit by somebody that's nefarious, and you're at work, probably on your work computer, meaning that you just compromised everybody at work versus I'm at home on a non-work device. And yeah, it sucks for you that you're a victim of identity theft or whatever, but it didn't bring your entire place of employment down to its knees too.
Sure. You know, in our organization, you know, we place a lot of trust in our employees to do things in a specific way. Obviously, we have the capabilities to block things from happening on our network. You know, if we don't want to allow traffic to Facebook or Twitter or whatever the case may be, we could do that, right?
Sure.
We do we expect our folks to, you know, do their job and, you know,
Right.
behave according to the policies that we've set forward. And believe it or not, I mean, we've not had a lot of issues with people, you know, partaking in, you know, social media or gaming or anything like that on the job, which is pretty amazing in and of itself. But I think if you know, set the standards and say, you know, this is what we expect, then, you know, that then you can get a long way in that. The policies that you described, I mean, that's pretty much what ours is. We don't want you using social media during work hours while you're here or while you're at a client site or anywhere else for that
Right.
matter. While you're representing us, you know, stay off of Twitter, stay off of Facebook. I mean, you know, don't shop. I mean, if you want to shop Amazon on your lunch break, okay, I get that, whatever. Or
Plus, if
even
it's going to be
even
delivered to
looking
the
at
office.
things on there. Right. So
Well,
yeah, it's, man, so much.
so along those lines, this is where I think it as we look at what time we have left, I think this is where it gets really interesting if we talk about CIS framework, the trust mark, any of the frameworks really, because ultimately there's some level of defining what your company is doing through policies, process, and procedure, right? People, process, people, product, process. You could find ways to get 3Ps in there some way, shape, or form. But I think what's really important here is that the evidence doesn't necessarily have to be the screenshots of social media or screenshots of like your firewall in this case, right? Like if you establish a strategy and a mission and core values as an organization that says, here's why we don't engage in what we've been talking about for the last 20 minutes or so, it's to protect you and the company. And if we're all in sync on this, then our culture will be reflective of that. And I don't have to, put rules into the firewall that block you from getting to Facebook because you can't control yourself. You've recognized that you are part of an organization that together we slow the stem of threats, right? Like we're not stopping it per se, but we're definitely slowing it down. And I think it's easy for us to get off in the weeds and put into place like, here's the evidence of where we prevent you from, like, your chair can only roll to the edge of your desk because we've put bumpers in so you can't roll all the way to the water cooler to fill your cup up. You're going to have to stand up. We are not tolerating a carpet that has, worn marks in it because you're too lazy to stand up. That's the beauty of this, right? If your organization is maturing in such a way that acceptable use policy, the employee handbook, and even you're getting to the point where you're not having to update it because culturally your organization is choosing to operate in that way because of how leadership has taught them, then you're part of the change that prevents bad things from happening. I say prevent because the threat actors are going after organizations that don't respond in a way that's like delete. They're looking for the organizations that have respond with, how much was the transaction again? $15,000. You want me to get gift cards at Walmart? No problem. You want me to walk there? Okay, got it. It happens. My mom actually got one the other day. Like,
Yeah.
walk to Best Buy. She's like, why am I walking to Best Buy? I can drive to Best Buy. I go, Mom, they know how old you are. They're creating a preconceived notion that you don't drive anymore. So, like, what they might have followed up with, oh, you can't walk. Can you take the assisted living shuttle service? My mom's like, I don't live in an assisted living facility. I'm like, okay, they know a whole lot less about you than you think, but they at least know how old you are. So they're making decisions in how they approach you, and you're not hearing the warning bells in your head like, what's logical about walking to Best Buy to get gift cards so you can give them the numbers on it so they can then take the money? Well, I thought that it was what I go, no, like, this is not a thing, like, ever. Like, have you ever seen on the news where they're like, hey, this is just in on CNN. If you really want to make money, go to Walmart, buy all the gift cards you can, do the scratch offs, call a friend, and tell them what the numbers were on those cards. Just call your best friend. That's the best way to do it. I digress.
Yeah, I mean, what started off as, some, African prince that's being exiled and, is going to give you $40 million if you, give him your bank account number type emails. I mean, it's definitely, gone so far beyond, what we saw in the beginning of this type of thing. I mean, effectively, these are con men and women, right?
Right.
These people are running. They are,
Catch me if you
it
can.
is this it is the same thing that's been going on from, back before any of this stuff existed. Con men rolls into town. He, looks to take advantage of somebody that is naive and does so, and then runs off with all their money.
Yeah, it's like,
I mean,
what do you mean you don't want any
it's
ice
the
cream?
same thing, just right.
Just get in the van. Everything is on. Everything is as it appears. I sell ice cream. Come on, climb in. It's good ice cream. Like, I mean, we know those tactics work, right? Like, and I think that's the part of like what should be compelling us to change, dramatically change how we do things. We are capable in the solution provider MSP space. We are truly capable of changing the culture around us. And yet, by and large, we're still focused on whether or not I can add a rule to my firewall that just blocks somebody from going to Facebook. You haven't solved for anything. All you've done is make them frustrated. And now they're figuring out how, oh, look what we discovered. The access point for the business across the street's got an open 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 access point, and I can get right on the internet with that with my work computer. Thanks, guys.
Yeah,
Excuse me.
exactly. Exactly. Yeah, it is I do believe that, we have to continue to just engage with our staff, engage with our clients. I mean, every time a client sends in a ticket to our system that says, hey, I got this email. I wanted to see what you guys thought. I look at that as a win, right? I mean, that means that we're doing our jobs, not only internally, but with our client base as well. And I think that we just have to keep beating the drum. I mean, we've just got to keep pounding that information into folks, and implementing the things that we can implement to help from a technology perspective or from a restriction perspective that doesn't hamper business too much, and taking all those things into account. But ideally, just keep walking around with the megaphone. Hey, don't open that email. Hey, don't click that link.
Right.
Hey, don't download that. Hey, don't just keep doing it. And I know that it gets old, and but at the same time, I think that we can all look, and when we get those emails from our clients, it's like, hey, it's working. It may only be 2 out of 10 people at that company that get it, but it's making headways, and those people are going to be talking to their coworkers and their families, and just keep pounding that stuff in to get it to take hold, get
Yeah.
root, and they'll it'll make them better in the long run.
Yeah, we've had this conversation, I know, over and over and over again. And as we wrap this up, one of the things I like to share with people is if you can't change your culture, you're not going to address cybersecurity problems because your organization is not going to support those initiatives. And I was trying to like wrap my head around, what's the best way to sort of paint that picture. And I was dealing with this with a presentation I had to give last week, and it's the Peter Drucker quote, culture eats strategy for breakfast. So if your culture and strategy aren't in alignment, then your success is going to suffer. And we talk a lot about strategy. We talk a lot about addressing safeguards and controls, but if we don't have culture supporting that, it's failed before it leaves the barn, right? Like, hey, we're going to go race, but the barn door is locked and I can't get the horse out. So I lost that
For
race,
sure.
right? Like,
yeah, I think changing our culture internally is always going to be easier overall than changing the culture of our clients, right? I mean, because we don't really
amen.
control that.
Yeah.
So
And that's okay.
we need to change, and it is, but we do need to take, we do need to be leaders, and we do need to change our own cultures, because we will wield influence across our client base, and they will adopt things. It may take some time, but it will happen.
Yeah, that's a good way to say that. I think what's really important about how we approach the culture within, because obviously we're trying to see change with our clients. I mean, and sometimes for the wrong reasons, wrong or right reasons, it's an opportunity, right? So our clients are always going to be opportunities to improve their posture, to help them be more efficient, be more productive, be safer. But those things are not very tangible out of the gate. So they're going to model their behavior based on what they see from those around them. So if you're in there modeling the behavior that is a posture that improves cybersecurity maturity, they'll start to adopt it too, even if they tell you they're not interested, which will lend itself down the road to potentially the biggest opportunities from existing clients, let alone prospects.
For sure. And it goes to the conversation of risk and how much risk this conversation of social engineering, what level of risk do these folks have, and bringing that to their attention, and then engaging in the conversation and continually engaging in the conversation. As long as we have the opportunity to do so, we should. And even if we're feeling ignored because they're not signing on, even if they're whatever, we've just got to keep doing it. And sometimes we'll sound like a completely broken record, and that's okay.
It's funny you
It's
say
okay.
the risk conversation. I was recently working with my team lead, my boss Wayne Selk, and he's talking about a presentation he has to give on risk. And I came across this article. I don't even remember what the article was at this point, but it was talking about your vendor risk management and how, like, what are the categories when we talk, we say third party risk, like it's this, like everybody should just understand what it is. And it was interesting because customers are third party risk too, right? So it got into talking about where the relationships are for what you have control over. So like fourth party risk would be an example of, like, if you use box.com or Dropbox as an example, and Dropbox uses AWS as the underlying vendor, well, that's fourth party. You have little to no control over what AWS does with Dropbox, right? And so it was interesting as I was walking through the ideas that were in the article, it was really highlighting for me, like, hey, we don't have these conversations with our clients when we talk about risk. Like, did you know that while you use Dropbox and we're helping you manage Dropbox, if AWS goes down, we have no control over helping you. Now, if Dropbox goes down, we have some control, right? We can articulate to you, like, hey, you can use your backup that's offline. You can do XYZ and it'll sync when it comes back. But AWS is down. There's no connectivity. There's nothing. And I don't know that customers understand that. Like, who are in the supply chain, where do we fit? Like, for you, the solution provider, vendor providing you with Dropbox, and the customer to you, they're both third party. You have contracts with both of them. But what about your client's client?
Yep.
You don't have a contract with them. That's fourth party risk to you. So it was just an interesting dynamic that I hadn't ever really put my brain around. And, it even talks about things like, what's the application running? What happens when it uses open source libraries? How does that impact what you're doing? Well, how does that impact risk? And I totally just went off on a random tangent because you brought up risk. But what my point is, we'll have to do another episode on risk and supply chain, because I think that'd be a good topic to cover. But to your point, culture and risk go hand in hand too. If we have a good conversation about the impact to their business, that's a factor based on the third party supply chain, and then of course that fourth party, well, now you start recognizing, like, hey, the ecosystem's super small and I play a significant role in how I'm impacted, and those around me are impacted by the decisions that I make. I don't know what else to talk about at this point. Jim, you got anything else?
Yeah, that's really good now, man. That's
all
good.
Right, that's a wrap.
I
Like,
say
for those of
it.
you listening, thanks. Have a great week.